Difficult one to really start off with this because I'm disappointed, but I'm not too disappointed, if that makes sense. At the end of the day, in my prediction, I did 4-0 to Man City off the back of the Nottingham Forest game. I said if we played like we did against Nottingham Forest, probably best case scenario would be a 3-0 defeat because I don't really see us scoring unless we score an absolute wonder goal. And we get to full time, and essentially we've lost 3-1 because we scored a wonder goal. Only other bits of disappointment are that at the end of that first half, we probably should have had more than one goal. And then obviously the goals that we've conceded are really poor goals to concede. And we'll obviously start with the start because we set our stall out immediately. I was happy with the way we were set up. I spoke about it enough in the last couple of games, how I would like to see McTominay and Bruno be the two in the middle. I would have had McTominay further forward, but it was quite evident that McTominay's job was to deal with Rodri. Fernandes was then the forward, who would then be the one that dropped in to get on the ball and play passes, meaning Garnacho and Rashford stayed wide. And that's what they did, and that's what actually ended up working, because we played a lot better having that balance back in the team. So well done, Eric Ten Hag, for that. And a little bit disappointed again that it's taken 3 games to figure that one out with Højlund not available to us. Obviously, the goal comes from a brilliant ball from Onana, perfectly timed run from Fernandes, perfectly timed kick from Onana, great turn, layoff, Rashford, won the goal, silences his critics for 10 minutes. And that's it, because there were 6 moments in this game, as far as I'm concerned, 6 key moments, and 4 of them centre around Rashford. Obviously, 2 of them centre around Foden, a couple of them centre around Haaland, and obviously we go from there. So Rashford takes his goal, does really well, but from that point onwards, we don't really see enough of Marcus Rashford, in my opinion. Again, he gives the ball away too cheaply. His battle with Kyle Walker should have been won by Marcus Rashford today from the balance of what he had, but it wasn't. It was won by Walker. The one where he's put clean through on goal, and all he has to do is chest it down. I don't know why he heads it down. All he has to do is just do a little chest forward and drive through. He tries to head it down to try and get it onto his feet quicker. Completely cocks it up. 5 minutes later, Bruno plays that ball over the top to McTominay. Rashford clearly calls for it because you see McTominay pull out of the challenge. And then Rashford just shanks it wide. And unfortunately, that's not good enough at this level. It just isn't. And from that moment on, Rashford just became a non-factor. Up until the moment that obviously sparked the first bit of controversy, which was the foul, which ended up leading to the Foden goal. But we'll get to that shortly because we have to talk about the Haaland miss. Obviously, we defended absolutely, in my opinion, near enough flawlessly in that first half. And I thought Onana was fantastic. His probably Onana's best performance in the Manchester United shirt. Again, some people will have a go at the second goal from Foden, but I think that would be a bit harsh. But his distribution was fantastic. His shot stopping was fantastic. And his defending on set plays was really good. He was coming out and actually claiming the ball, winning punches. Something we've not been doing very well. And that sort of back three of Varane, Evans and Onana really did defend from set pieces and crosses into the box really, really well. Because the way we had it set up was we were compact in the middle, forcing City out wide to then play it into the middle where Onana, Varane and Evans could sweep it up. Then we move on to the second half, and obviously I was sort of sitting there at half-time going, well, okay, we've got away with it a little bit. Onana made a good save from Foden. Haaland's had probably miss of the season, but equally, Rashford should have scored from the 1v1 where he lost it against Walker, and Rashford should have scored from the chance that he shanked wide. So, balance of play, 2 big chances for each team, and Manchester United lead 1-0 off of the screamer from Rashford. So I'm a little bit nervous going into the second half. We actually start the second half very well. Again, we're compact, we're tight, we're not giving City any opportunities, and we're pushing forward and we start creating more chances, and we're getting into those areas in the wide position. Then the Walker and Rashford incident happens. It's not a foul. Look, I wouldn't have been surprised to see the referee give a foul, but when you look at it back, he's looking for it. There's barely any contact at all. It's certainly not enough for him to go down. And the referee wasn't giving any decisions like that. There wasn't even a foul in the match until the 26th minute. So the referee was letting a lot go anyway. So if he'd have given a foul for that, I think it would have been very hypocritical of the decisions that he'd already made during the match. At this moment, for the first time in the match, a Manchester United player flung their arms in the air and stopped running. And that player was Marcus Rashford. And unfortunately, you can't do it. Again, we spoke about it in the Nottingham Forest game. You have to be switched on every single second of every single minute against Manchester City, against the best team in the world. You have to be switched on every single second. You don't have time to fling your arms in the air, slap your hands on the floor, lay on your back for 5 seconds, get up and trundle back. Because 20 seconds later, down your left-hand defensive side, on Phil Foden's right-hand side, he's come inside. Lindelof has not got the support that he's had from Rashford for the remainder of the game up until that point, and he stuck it in the top corner. Brilliant finish from Phil Foden, an absolute worldie of his own as well. And obviously, he could have shanked it. It could have potentially done a little bit more from Lindelof. But ultimately, when you're playing against players as good as that, they're going to produce moments like that. And unfortunately, without the support from Rashford, it's 1-1. And Manchester United have let it go because one player has switched off. From there, we then obviously make the substitutions. And I need to mention Johnny Evans at this point because Johnny Evans didn't give, well, I'm going to say didn't give our Haaland a sniff. Obviously, Haaland had that big chance that he missed. But that, again, just came from a little bit of laziness in the midfield beforehand. But Johnny Evans' performance on Erling Haaland was absolutely phenomenal today. He didn't get round him up until quite literally the very last play before he got substituted. Haaland spun him, creating that free kick when Evans then got substituted. And it's unfortunate that Evans had to go off because I genuinely think if he could have been fully fit for the full 90 minutes, we would have had a lot more chance of hanging on in that game. But unfortunately, Evans had to go off. Our squad depth just unfortunately isn't there. I know there's a lot of hype around Kwanbala. He looks like a good young player, but to thrust him in at this sort of position at this time, to then leave Lindelof to be the one to deal with the much bigger Haaland, it was just never going to end well. And with him coming off, then obviously Rashford, who did need to come off, and Anthony coming on, who offered absolutely nothing in return either, you could then just see the game drifting away from Manchester United. And ultimately, squad depth is what killed us in the latter half of that game. We had nothing to bring on. We had 2 senior players on the subs bench. We had Anthony, we had Amrabat. Anthony did absolutely nothing, and we'll get to Amrabat in a moment. Obviously, then the second goal comes down that right-hand side with Kwanbala, trying to cover all the different runners, but he wasn't fully up to speed of the game. We'd played very well. I thought Dalot again was phenomenal on that right-hand side. He then had to make the switch to left-back to deal with Foden on that side, but then Foden made the switch to the right-hand side defensively, and they just played it around us, unfortunately, and it's a brilliant bit of movement and skill. Foden gets in, he shoots. Could Onana have done better? Maybe, but I think it's very hard to say Onana needed to do better. And it was 2-1 to City, and the writing was on the wall. And then the third goal is just flat out embarrassing. Again, I spoke about it. You've got to be switched on every second of every minute against Manchester City. And Sofian Amrabat has put the final nail in his Manchester United coffin as far as I'm concerned. He's alone with an option to buy. I wouldn't be taking that option at all. He has not done anything in a Manchester United shirt. And to come on in a Manchester derby when you're chasing a game, to take a lazy touch, to not even look up, turn straight into Rodri and allow him to put Haaland through on goal means that it ends up being 3-1, which I think is harsh on Manchester United. I know there'll be City fans thinking, well, yeah, but this, and this, we dominated, it probably deserved to be 3, 4 or 5. But ultimately, I think Manchester United didn't deserve to concede more than 2 because of how well Varane, Evans, Dalot defended. And unfortunately, due to Amrabat coming on and being very lazy, it's ended up being 3-1 and Haaland gets his goal. But like I said, I can't be too disappointed. I really can't. Again, there's going to be talk about the Edison challenge as well in the build-up to Foden's second goal. But for me, yes, he leaves the floor and they go on about these challenges where there's excessive force and dangerous play. But ultimately, Garnacho takes a poor touch, which Garnacho does far too often, in my opinion. He doesn't get there properly. Edison does leap in the air, but has his feet planted when he gets to the ball. And he only catches Garnacho with a small part of his trailing leg. He doesn't endanger Garnacho, therefore it's not a foul, therefore it's not a penalty. Therefore, Manchester City's 2 goals, as far as I'm concerned, are completely fine. Other than, obviously, Rashford not tracking back on the first. So, it is what it is. We are now 11 points behind Aston Villa with 11 games to go. We have still got to play Liverpool, Newcastle, Arsenal, Chelsea, it's not looking good if we're going to get top 4. Potentially, it could end up being top 5 for Champions League, but even then, we're a few points behind Spurs, and Spurs have a game in hand. Yes, those two sides are playing each other next week, so at least one of them will drop points, but a big, big ask with 11 games to go and tough opposition still to come. But it is what it is. Ultimately, our squad depth just wasn't there today. Injuries have started to pile up, which is not an excuse. Tactically, I thought Erik ten Hag did the best that he possibly could. Maybe the substitutions could have been a little bit better, but genuinely, I think Rashford had to come off. Evans was knackered, and then we were chasing the game anyway. So not really much more Erik ten Hag could do. Great performances from Onana, Evans, Varane, Dalot, Casemiro at times as well. But unfortunately, the attack just wasn't on it today, and it ends up being 3-1 to Manchester City. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I will see you again tomorrow morning for the return of Champions League predictions.